September of last year. You were there, weren't you?
I was.
And representatives of all three governments, military, business, economic ministers, and commerce officials. Why was the press not permitted to be there?
Well, there were press in the room, but the leaders of the three groups decided that they wanted to keep the discussions active and vigorous and therefore confidential. My personal view is that I would have preferred for the meeting to have issued a statement or report afterwards, and I hope that if the group comes together again that they'll do that.
Under what authority are they coming together?
Oh, it was a conference. I'm sure you've attended.
It's a conference. I'm asking what authority?
I think the three leaders, one was George Shultz from the United States, Peter Lougheed, the former premier of Alberta, Pedro Aspe, a former minister of finance of Mexico, just assembled a group of about 75 people, 25 from each
just
country.
Willy-nilly got together.
Oh, yes. Don't you attend conferences from time to time to learn about the world?
No, I prefer, frankly, to learn about the world through travel, my reporting, my reading and studying. The fact of the matter is I really have an aversion to conferences altogether, but I know that some people make a living on them. Who is paying for all of this?
Well, I was not organizing that. You'll have to get to the organizers of the conference. I think foundations, there may have been some corporate sponsorship as well. I was just invited to it.
Right. You also are considered by many to be the architect of this North American Union, or Competitors Council as it's coming forward. I'd like to ask you something that's I found rather curious in the North American Forum, saying, while a vision is appealing, working on this, by the way, brought forward by Judicial Watch through Freedom of Information, while a vision is appealing, working on the infrastructure might yield more benefit and bring more people on board. Evolution by stealth. Why should anyone in this country, Mexico or Canada, presuming they're interested in the sovereign rights and power of their respective nations, tolerate this kind of elitist nonsense?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by elitist nonsense. I think these are.
I'd be glad to explain it.
Well, go ahead.
The fact of the matter is that government relations are defined by our Constitution, and this is an attempt to integrate economies without the approval of the elected officials of the country, and without transparency of any kind or consideration on the part of the elites who are combining behind this idea. We have a North American Free Trade Agreement with very specific methodologies and appropriate processes to follow. None of that is being followed here.
Surely you, of all people, would not want to criticize freedom of speech. You don't want to criticize an opportunity.
Oh, I wouldn't criticize it at all. As a matter of fact, but I'm so thrilled with the freedom of press and the public's right to know. I'd like to see it fully transparent to all of us.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more.
Well, why don't you talk to your folks and say, let's get this thing straightened out and let's talk about what we're really talking about.
Well, I think I commend you for beginning a discussion which we ought to have on a national level about how to relate to our neighbors to enhance our security and enhance our prosperity as well. That's exactly what this is about. And there has been inadequate understanding of that, and frankly, very timid acts by each of the three governments. So I would like to see a lot more.
Well, you call them timid. I call them absolutely arrogant. I'm one of those folks, when you say stealth, I get awful excited about it. I know lots of other Americans do too, and certainly I bet you a lot of, I haven't talked with the Canadians or the Mexicans, but the fact is, when individuals start taking on sort of super governmental initiatives without either approval or the direction of elected officials, it gets to be problematic, don't you think?
Well, you're certainly not suggesting that nobody should talk about these issues. In fact, I'd like to talk about them with you as well. Let's talk about, for example, how to enhance our prosperity among the three countries. I think we should move towards to negotiate a customs union, a common external tariff.
Right.
Well, I don't think it makes any sense for us to have rules of origin procedures on our borders.
Let me, we'll continue this conversation. We're out of time, but let me just respond quickly to that one. I think that when we worry about prosperity, with a $75 billion trade deficit with Canada, a $50 billion trade deficit with Mexico, and such an asymmetrical the nature of all of these economies, that I would like some more thoughtful people than you've aggregated to take on the issue. But I'll be glad to continue this with you, and I look forward to talking to you in the next few weeks.
Well, I do too.
Thank you, Robert
just call me
Pastor.
up anytime.
You got it, partner. Well, Stephen Colbert surpassed new concerns tonight about moves towards what some call a North American Union. A number of high-level government meetings are taking place in Mexico to discuss North American integration of Mexico, the United States, and Canada. More meetings are scheduled. It is an aggressive agenda proposed at the highest levels of our government and U.S. commerce without congressional or voter oversight. Lisa Sylvester reports.
A caravan of cars travels along the Arizona desert. Homeland Security Secretary Michael Chertoff was visiting the U.S.-Mexican border. Last week, he was in Mexico City. Commerce Secretary Carlos Gutierrez visited Mexico February 1st. Attorney General Alberto Gonzalez January 11th. And President Bush himself will travel there next month. The high-level meetings are to advance North American integration, also known as the Security Prosperity Partnership.
There are several ways it could go. One is modeled after the EU. One is modeled after sort of an economic community. It's beyond the scope of just a free trade zone, which we fairly well have already with those two countries.
This partnership is being driven by the U.S. business community, which envisions ships from China docking in Mexico instead of California. Mexican truck drivers transporting cargo on a NAFTA superhighway all the way to Canada. A cornerstone of this model is a guest worker immigration program that relaxes U.S. borders. Critics say the plan would greatly benefit Mexico, but could mean the loss of American jobs and an increase in social costs to U.S. taxpayers.
The reality is that last year they came close to passing a bill which would have allowed close to 100 million immigrants into the country, most of them low-skilled, over the next 20 years. That will in fact bankrupt the United States.
Those concerned with integrating the economies point to the disparities. The U.S. GDP per capita is $43,500. Canada, $35,200. Mexico, only $10,600. The average adult in the United States has 12 years of education. In Canada, 11 and a half years. Mexico, only a little over 7 years of schooling. And this Friday, another round of top-level meetings in Canada. Secretary Michael Chertoff, Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, and Commerce Secretary Carlos Gutierrez will be meeting with their Canadian and Mexican counterparts. Now, the press releases say the focus will be on providing for the free flow of trade, helping secure borders, and keeping the U.S. competitive. But, Lou, really what they're talking about is this new economic integration. Lou?
And Congress is sitting basically on its hands, saying nothing. Hearing nothing, apparently, as we continue to report on this outright outrageous conduct.
And it is even possible that Congress may not even have a say. What we are hearing is that the Bush administration is trying to use NAFTA as the justification for doing a lot of this, Lou.
This is an arrogance and abuse of power that frankly, this administration is laying a claim on for the history books to be written for years to come. It's extraordinary. If you want to, we should let our viewers know, Lisa, that if they want to write their congressman or their senators, they can go to our website, loudobbs.com, and there select your congressional district and whoever is representing you and your family, or your senator, or both, and you can send an email there with your thoughts on this. This is outrageous.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law. Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge. Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order.